think I'll suffer with the mask. I like to see my people. I like to reach over. There's Peter and Rob and yeah. We're serving people.
Hello there, John. Am I still here?
Yes. I was thinking I was just going to put them in a hat and shake them up and see where they felt. Yes, you're still there.
Good.
My mask doesn't match my hair, though.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true.
Ooh.
That's a little gray.
We could do this in a parking lot, and it would be okay with that.
I know. Don't think it hasn't. There's been many times where I've wondered if we couldn't have open air council meetings just because it's nice to be outside, you know?
That better be on your calendar.
Really?
It's there.
Yeah, he's the warden in a lot of these issues.
Sure, okay. Yeah, thank you. We'll talk. Yeah, sounds great.
Oh, 7 o'clock.
I'm surprised the governor hasn't come out with a new order, a new emergency order.
To do what?
You know, because the variant's going
You know what
crazy.
amazes me? When we're in the middle of this, if we got the 5% positivity rate, everything's good.
Yeah.
We're at 3.5 or 3.8.
You're all freaking out.
We're all freaking out. It's like,
True.
What is it, south of Springfield is higher than that though,
I
right?
don't know.
I mean, it's,
I've stopped even thinking about
yeah,
it. It's
I
just,
mean, we're up here, doing good. But we've had,
They're saying a lot of children were never tested.
right,
I was surprised at the vaccination rates down in some of those southern. It's like a third.
yeah, I know, it's crazy.
It's really unbelievable.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Winnetka Village Council regular meeting for September 9th, 2020. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Help to turn that on. I would like to call the meeting to order, and first order of business is asking everybody to either turn off or mute your cell phones or other electronic devices, and I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, item 3 is the quorum. Rob, would you like to check quorum for the upcoming meetings?
certainly. 2 more meetings for September, the 14th and the 21st. Does all look okay? Yeah, I think you had a conflict on the 21st, right? All right, and then October 5th, first meeting in October? All look okay? Great, thank you.
And could you remind everybody the budget meeting again, Rob?
Yes, Friday, October 29th.
Okay, thanks. All right, item number 4 is public comment. This is the time of the evening when anybody from the public who wishes to address Village Council on items that are not on the agenda, they're welcome to come up to the podium, share your name and address and anything that might be on your mind. Is anybody here for public comment this evening? Come on up. Oh, hi, Nancy.
I'm Nancy Fox, 1036 Elm Street. And just briefly, I just wondered, you know, we had a questionnaire that came out, and maybe it was in our mailbox or email, but what did we want for the village? I really don't, it was a long time ago. And what I wanted for the village, I typed it in somewhere, I don't even remember, that I wanted an indoor lap pool, not play, but lap, swimming, and I've wanted this for years. A lot of people, I suppose, do. And I've checked out buildings. I've thought of, like Mullen Hardware's basement. I mean, you know, I went through it all and had fun and realized what I was up against. So I just wondered, have you all ever discussed it? I suppose you never saw my comment, but anyway, that's why I was here, just to put that idea in. I don't like the looks of everything. It's kind of depressing. I think there'd be a wonderful addition if we started paying attention to what kind of shops we have. A little of the old-fashioned village, I guess. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Nancy. Anybody else? Kristen, did we receive any public comment via email?
No, President Prince, no public comment in advance of the meeting.
Awesome, okay. So we'll close public comment and move on to appointments. The first order of business is, I would like to, I'm asking for a motion to appoint Christina Dahlman as village trustee to fill the unexpired term of trustee Penny Lampier.
So moved.
Roll call vote.
Trustee Kreip.
Yes.
Trustee Apatow.
Yes.
Trustee Swerk.
Yes.
Trustee Dearborn.
Yes.
Trustee Mancini.
Yes.
That motion carries. Rob, would you like to swear Tina in?
I would.
Thank you.
I gotta clear my spot. This is your last chance to run.
Tina, John already took your spot over. So you're gonna have to fight for any space that you get over there, so.
Raise your right hand, repeat after me. I, Christina Dahlman,
I, Christina Dahlman,
having been appointed to the office of village trustee
having been appointed to the office of village trustee
in the village of Winnetka,
in the village of Winnetka,
in the county of Cook,
in the county of Cook,
in the state of Illinois,
in the state of Illinois,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the state of Illinois,
the Constitution of the state of Illinois,
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of village trustee
of the office of village trustee
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
I'm waiting for you.
Now get to work.
Yeah, you picked a good one to start, too, for sure. Okay, well,
Thank you. Thank you.
welcome, Tina.
Hi, thank you.
So with Tina moving up to village council, that kind of creates a waterfall of other appointments that are necessary to keep Plan Commission in its full membership. So the first one is I'm asking that someone make a motion that current Plan Commission member Bridget Orsick will be moved to Plan Commission Chair, and her term will expire on 9/10/24. May I have a motion to approve this appointment?
So moved. Second.
Roll call vote?
Trustee Dearborn.
Yes.
Trustee Kreip.
Yes.
Trustee Apatow.
Yes.
Trustee Mancini.
Yes.
Trustee Swerk.
Yes.
Trustee Dahlman.
Yes.
That motion carries. Now, to fill the vacated slot of Bridget, I ask that someone make a motion to appoint Jonathan Alt to the Plan Commission to fill the unexpired term of Bridget Orsick. His term will expire 5/18/24. May I have a motion to approve this appointment?
So moved. Second.
Roll call vote?
Trustee Apatow.
Yes.
Trustee Kreip.
Yes.
Trustee Mancini.
Yes.
Trustee Dearborn.
Yes.
Trustee Swerk.
Yes.
Trustee Dahlman.
Yes.
That motion carries. And finally, I believe Chris Foley, right?
Yes.
Who is leaving the Environmental and Forestry Commission, was our PC liaison from EFC to the Plan Commission. He's stepping down, and I'm asking that we appoint Liz Kunkel as the Environmental and Forestry Commission representative to the Plan Commission. Her term on the EFC expires on 5/18/24. May I have a motion to approve this appointment?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Trustee Mancini.
Yes.
Trustee Apatow.
Yes.
Trustee Dahlman.
Yes.
Trustee Swerk.
Yes.
Trustee Dearborn.
Yes.
Trustee Kreip.
Yes.
That motion carries. Thanks, everyone. Now we roll up our sleeves and get to work. Okay, item number 6 is reports. We'll start down with Rob. Any report this evening?
Nothing too major. That's just that it's a big weekend for Winnetka. We have the art exhibits, fairs, and farmers markets, and of course the music fest, which I hope everyone wakes up and makes sure they goes to. It's going to be an incredible day for Winnetka, and incredible effort, amount of work is going in to make this thing a success.
Great, thanks. Andy?
Tomorrow, we have the September 11th Memorial Flag Planting. Starts at 3:30 on the Village Green. Anyone who's interested in coming by and helping out, be more than welcome. We have a couple thousand flags to plant. And, you know, stay for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or however long you want. At 5 o'clock, we have a piper and drum band, a small family piper and drum band that will come and play for about 15 minutes, recognize those that we lost in the service of our first responders.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Andy. Kim, any reports?
I sat in the EFC meeting last night. They are very excited about the revamp of the 2040 plan and are looking forward to participating in future discussions.
Yeah, actually, I saw an amazing document that they generated. You guys will all get a chance to see it soon. Really good work over there. I'm really impressed with what they've been doing. Bob?
No report, Chris.
John?
No report?
And Tina, I promise not to put you on any special commissions just yet, so I won't ask you for a report.
Awesome.
All right, village manager,
No report.
village attorney,
No report tonight.
and since Rob and Andy stole all my thunder, I don't have a report either, so thank you. All right, moving forward. Item 7 is the approval of the agenda. Does any trustee wish to remove an item on the consent agenda for a separate vote? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the final form of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. And we'll keep on moving. Item 8 is the consent agenda. I will ask the village clerk to read the items on the consent agenda.
Thank you. Approval of the village council meeting minutes for August 3rd, 2021, regular meeting. Approval of the warrant list dated August 13th through August 26th, 2021, in the amount of $2,055,151.12. Resolution number R73, 2021, approving a contract for training tower repairs. Resolution number R74, 2021, Streetscape Phase 4 Construction Design Services for adoption. Resolution number R75, 2021, Change Order 2021 MFT Contract for Birch Street. Resolution number R76, 2021, approving a contract purchase for 138 kV metering transformers. Resolution number R78, 2021, Gateway and wayfinding signage and outdoor seating area permits for adoption.
Great. All right, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda by omnibus vote?
So moved.
Roll call vote?
Trustee Dearborn?
Yes.
Trustee Apatow? Yes. Trustee Kripe?
Yes.
Trustee Mancini?
Yes.
Trustee Swerk?
Yes.
Trustee Dahlman?
Yes.
That motion carries. Thank you. Okay, item number 9 this evening is ordinances and resolution. Resolution number R77, 2021, valve replacement. This resolution would approve the utilization of northern divers to replace the sluice gate and underwater valve located where the raw water intake pipe connects to the intake pond. The valve has sustained damage from a previous storm significant enough that northern divers were unable to repair the valve when initially attempted. Water and Electric Director Brian Keyes is here to review this matter. Brian, take it away.
Good evening. Thanks for the introduction, President Rintz. It's nice to be able to make a contract consideration request face-to-face as opposed on the Zoom meetings. So, as mentioned in the introduction, I'm seeking your consideration of a contract to replace a sluice gate valve at the electric plant. The electric plant uses the intake ponds. That's the sheet metal, we call them ponds, but structures to the east of the plant. One brings water into the plant, and one's cooling water coming out. And that pond is fed from Lake Michigan through 2 valves, a surface water valve and this 60-inch sluice gate that we're talking about tonight, which connects to a 60-inch diameter pipe that goes 1,500 feet into Lake Michigan. It also, that 1,500-foot raw water pipe also has a Y off of it and serves as another line for the water plant raw water line. The two valves that serve the intake pond are currently inoperable. The first one, the surface water valve, was damaged in a storm and was slated as something we were looking at this year. But during the summer, while operating the 60-inch sluice gate that we're speaking of tonight, it failed to operate. So staff, under the procurement authority of the village manager, retained Northern Divers to try to make an in-service repair of the valve, and if it was not repairable, to collect the required information to specify a replacement. They've they've provided a proposal and agreed to contract terms prepared by the village attorney. And the proposal for the replacement of the valve, since I'm standing before you, can surmise it was not repairable, is $66,639. We're asking to use Northern Divers because they're the firm that had done the dive inspection. They're familiar with what the conditions are underwater. It's unlikely we could get another firm to competitively bid without paying them to go underwater and look at it as well. Northern Divers has performed work for the village, specifically the water and electric utilities, and has won competitive projects like the raw water intake maintenance, sediment removal at the water plant, and periodic inspections of the raw water line. From a budget perspective and adherence to the budget, is I'd plan on spending $90,000 in the electric fund in the approved budget this year for pier repairs. And so basically what we're doing is reprioritizing replacement of this sluice gate valve over the surface water valve. Due to the extent of the conditions of the pier, it has sustained additional damage since this budget was originally created. In the coming months, we'll be requesting through the budgeting process at the October meeting a year consideration of a much larger repair expense for the pier, and I suspect we're going to need some engineering services, which we may still get in front of you yet this year. I'd like to move forward with the replacement of the sluice gate valve this year and would request your consideration of R77-2021, which would waive the requirement for formal bidding, approve a contract with Northern Divers to move forward with the sluice gate replacement in an amount not to exceed $66,639. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Brian? Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, I guess, how old is this valve? I'm just curious. Was it?
I'm guessing it's original, but I don't know off the top of my head what the year the pond was installed.
Okay. So I didn't know if it actually was physically damaged or just wore out.
I think the combination of the environment it's in and its age, and basically what they're telling us is the track assembly that's on is basically so far gone and deteriorated that it can't be repaired.
Okay.
And so it's a valve assembly, but it's not like it's a little different than a water main valve where it's like a house, where your water main valve is more like your house valve. This is a sliding gate that slides down in a track assembly.
Got it. Okay. Thanks.
Yes.
And in normal operating, it's open, right?
Generally, we leave it open in normal operating, but the reason it's important to me is that in certain Lake Michigan conditions, we'll close, if we're not generating, we'll close that valve because it helps us control the incoming raw water turbidity to the water plant. So we can avoid like a looping process. If we have like a strong wind coming in to the shoreline, we prefer to try to be able to operate this valve. That's why it's been prioritized over the surface water valve.
And it's electronically operated?
It's a manual valve. It's got a big wheel and it takes two people in a gear.
At the surface, though?
It's at the surface.
Okay.
So what happens is it comes up and there's a platform and a big, 24-inch diameter metal wheel that someone is out there.
Okay, good, thank you.
Brian, and obviously we have to do this, neither valve is working right now. This has to be done, so I don't think anyone's going to object to that. But can you put a little more meat on the bones from a budget standpoint on what so this is 60, you haven't used any of the pier allocation yet.
So, correct.
This is 66 of it. And what do you think is coming down the pike between now and year end? We're about to talk budget in 6 weeks.
Between now and year end, I'd like to have a contract awarded for professional services to begin design work for the other repairs down there, which would include some concrete repairs, the surface water valve, sheet piling, and the parking lot.
Is that likely to be a 2022?
That's definitely going to be a 2022 project. There's no way with the time and/or potential permitting implications that we're going to get that work done. And we could get the design work well started, but construction would be 2022.
Okay. So it sounds like you're going to stay with them in this budget.
Yeah,
for 2021.
At this point, I'm planning on staying in, may seek some consideration of going over depending on what the professional services proposals are, so we can get that launched. But at this point in time, with this request, we're still within the budget of the electric fund.
Does the electric fund have contingency?
It's fund balance, but not a designated contingency.
Not a designated
Yeah.
contingency, yeah, just work into the fund balance. Okay. Thank you.
Yes?
Other questions?
Brian, does, the fact that this one valve failed indicate we should expect any similar issues in the rest of that structure? I know that we probably need to shoot some WD-40 on that wheel.
The structure, as when we get into the budgeting process and you hear from the professional services, the pier structure, including the parking lot in the end,
Yeah.
are in need of a sizable amount of repair.
What about that pond?
The pond, that's one of the things that, when we brought it, we've had several engineering firms in to look at, and they'll be looking at some of the sheet piling on would be the north end.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it from over time it's got a wave to it, but I think most of where the work is on the parking lot and the end that's directly against Lake Michigan.
Okay. Okay.
There's a sizable amount of repair work.
Yeah.
Just one quick follow-up question, because I'm worried about liability. That Tower Road Pier, although it's I was over there over the weekend, it's a 2022 expense. Do we need to do anything to dismantle or fix from a liability standpoint?
So we've put up security fence down there
Saw
and
that,
posted
yeah.
it.
Is there anything that's imminent to caving in?
Well, so basically a security fence has been put up and we've restricted use of the end of the pier.
Okay.
So the general public is not to be out on it. It's posted. We're enforcing that with the help of the police department. So that's where it's at this point in time.
Okay.
Other questions? Seeing none, I'll open it up for public comment. Does anybody here in the room have any comments on resolution number R77, 2021? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. Any other discussion here, folks? We good to go? All right, do I have a motion to adopt resolution number R77, 2021?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Trustee Kreip?
Yes.
Trustee Apitoff?
Yes.
Trustee Dahlman?
Yes.
Trustee Swerk?
Yes.
Trustee Dearborn? Trustee Mancini?
Yes.
All right, that motion carries. Thanks a lot, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Okay, moving right along. Item B is ordinance number M15, 2021, 1180 Tower, variations, residential additions, and this is for introduction. The owner of the subject property has applied for a zoning variation to allow construction of additions to the existing single-family residence. The applicant has presented construction plans that were approved by the ZBA at their July meeting. Community Development Director David Schoen will be here to review it.
Yes, good evening. So the application before you requires a few variations. It was before the Zoning Board of Appeals on 3 separate occasions, and the applicant did make some changes during that process. And I will describe what those were and what the request is this evening. Just to note, the subject property is located on Tower Road between Gordon Terrace and Auburn Road. It currently is improved with an existing 2-story house. The property is zoned R4 residential. The residence and garage were constructed in 1925. The one unique thing I'd like to point out about this application is that the subject property shares a driveway, or I should say a curb cut, with its neighbor to the east, 1174 Tower Road. The subject property has 2 curb cuts on Tower Road. The neighbor only has the one which it shares with 1174, the subject or 1184, the subject property. As the applicant went through the process, they did make changes to the plan that eliminated or reduced certain variations. In addition to reducing the width of the garage from approximately 24.5 feet to 22 feet to bring it into zoning compliance with that requirement, The applicant also reduced the front yard lot coverage by approximately 137 feet and the maximum gross floor area by 101 feet. That gross floor area reduction really came from reducing the width of that garage addition on the front of the building, so it reduced floor area on the first floor level, and then also reduced GFA on the second floor area. Those changes still left for variations. However, the variation that the zoning board really focused most of its attention on was the front yard lot coverage, and it was the one in the end that two members could not support the request. At the June ZBA meeting, after the applicant reduced the amount of front yard lot coverage, the board continued to discuss the variation, and many options were considered or asked about. Would the applicant consider placing the garage in the rear yard? Would the applicant consider a tandem garage rather than a new two-stall facing front garage? Would the applicant consider reducing the circular driveway by eliminating one of the westerly driveway to reduce the amount of impermeable lot coverage? I just want to make it clear at this point that the front yard lot coverage does not consist of any part of the garage. And I will explain a little, though, how the design and placement of the garage does impact the front yard lot coverage. So this slide, on the left is the existing front yard, and on the right is the current proposal. So as you can see with the current proposal, shifting that garage or placing the garage where it is and maintaining that circular driveway has pushed more of the driveway into that required front yard, but has created more green space between the house and the driveway. But the requirement is no more than 30% of that rectangular area can be covered by impermeable surface. So when looking at the existing, on the left-hand side, there's 825 square feet of impermeable lot coverage in the required front yard, compared to the proposed, which is a little over 1,200 square feet. So that's an increase of 379 square feet. The other thing I would note is that the existing is currently over the maximum allowed by about 114 square feet. This is an elevation of the proposed front addition from the street. Given that at the June meeting, the ZBA had asked questions about these alternatives regarding placement of the garage, and the applicant wanted to find out what may be the impact on trees based upon different alternatives. So the village forester did visit the site just to give his evaluation if certain things happened, what may be the impact on trees. So as you can see, A and B, there are two mature trees on both sides of the driveway. One of the options that was talked about was changing the location of the driveway. And the village forester indicated that that could have impacts on either of those trees depending upon which way the driveway was relocated to. In terms of placing the garage in the rear yard, which would probably then be in the rear southeast corner. His evaluation is that that would impact 3 large mature trees, F, G, and H. He did note the applicant's current proposal, placing the garage in the front, will require the removal of tree E. And depending upon what, how much disruption has occurred on that driveway, D may be impacted as well. The one thing I will note, and the applicant is here and can elaborate on it, that the challenges they have getting in and out of the driveway, given the grade of the driveway apron, and the challenges they and their neighbor who share that, that they often then use the west driveway access point to get in and out of the site. So the Zoning Board of Appeals did recommend approval by a vote of 4-2. Those who recommended approval found that the request met the standards for granting a variation. They thought it was appropriate in terms of the changes to reuse the existing house or preserve the existing house versus the potential for a tear down and a new house. So they supported and found that the request met the standards. Those opposed did not find it met the standards. They believe there could still be reduction. There still may need to be a variation, but they felt maybe there could still be a reduction in the request and therefore could not recommend approval. So tonight on your agenda, because the vote was 4-2, you have just introduction of the ordinance for your consideration. And with that, either after the applicant responds or now, I'd be happy to answer questions.
Sure. Probably makes sense to hear from the applicant before we dig in. And then here's the way this will go tonight is applicants, Hewitts, you'll come up and if you'd like to share any thoughts with us, that would be great. You can come up, tell us your story. I'll then open it up for conversations from for questions only for David on the packet. And after we've gone through all the questions, then we'll go in ahead and dig into then we'll go to public comment. Excuse me. Hear if any neighbors or interested residents have anything to say about it. And after public comment, we'll bring it back up here, and then you guys can deliberate and figure out which way we're going to go. That make sense? Okay, come on up.
Good evening. It would be very nice if we could all see each other without masks on, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would.
So while I'm masked up, I may take a couple of deep breaths. I promise that's not to calm myself. It's just to get some oxygen to me. I'm Ann Hewitt. I am the owner of record of this house. This is my husband, John Gordon. And this is our architect, Dan Leasis. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. I want to tell you a story about this property and what we are hoping to accomplish with the proposed changes we're discussing tonight. You've already heard a very good synopsis of it, so I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail, but you know that there are 3 minor variances. There's an existing non-compliance that dates to 1925, which is the total side yard setback of 15.5 feet. We are not asking for any change to that. There are 2 changes that require new variances. One is the gross floor area, which is approximately 220 square feet, which is a little over 5%. The second is the front yard setback of 33 feet, which is a variance of 5 feet. Then the final request is the major variance, which is the front yard lot coverage of 1,204 square feet. For perspective, as you just heard, The site currently contains 825 square feet of front yard lot coverage. Here's the background on this house. It's 95 years old, and I have owned it for 21 years. It was a very young house when I bought it, and I was a very young person when I bought it, but now we've both aged. John and I deeply want to preserve the aesthetic of the house and the character that is inherent in an old house, so it can continue to be an asset to the village for another 95 years. We want to make sure that the house doesn't eventually become a tear down and somebody builds a brand new house and who knows what it looks like. I am very sentimental about this house. John and I are newlyweds. Fortunately, we got married before the pandemic, but not very much before, not long enough before that we've gone on a honeymoon. We want this to be our forever home, however long forever is. So we're committed to living here for as long as we are able to live in a house, as long as we can still climb stairs. And we just want to bring it up to current market standards so that when the day comes that we can't live there anymore, it's not going to be knocked down and demolished and end up in a landfill. We also would like to do this work in sort of one fell swoop. I don't want to come back in a year and a half and say, and now we want to do this, or now we want to do this. And plus I won't have any money after this if we get to do it. But we want to do this job and live in this house as our forever home. The considerations behind our proposal were, 1, to preserve the architectural integrity of the existing house, 2, to preserve the streetscape, 3, to preserve our little piece of Winnetka history, 4, to protect the land. So we had a strong emphasis on tree preservation and also on not having any kind of negative impact on the impermeable surface area. 5, to be respectful of the village's criteria for zoning and for the approval process. So we've tried hard to meet the criteria set out by the village for renovations. Our special focus has been on the improvements are not going to alter the essential character of the village or of Tower Road. The improvements will not increase congestion. The improvements will maintain the architectural integrity of the front and back elevations, and that the improvements will meet what I think of as a very reasonable goal of the village, to discourage parking in the front of a house. So we don't want it to look like a parking lot. And I would note that in 2021, a one-car garage is almost an invitation to use the front yard area for additional parking. So that's one of 2 reasons that we respectfully seek to build a 2-car garage. Our desire to modernize the house by adding a 2-car garage that I just described, along with a family room and a master bedroom with a bathroom, will help bring the house up to the 2021 expectations that people have when they come to Winnetka. And if you looked through that packet, which I know is about 4,000 pages long, you might have seen the pictures of the second floor with this steeply sloped ceilings, which really minimizes headroom and is especially inconvenient in the bathrooms for a tall man who cannot stand up in the shower, can't stand up straight in the shower or over the commode. Not to be too graphic about it, I'm a nurse, so we talk about these things on a regular basis. The design had to take all those factors into consideration with the existing non-conforming elements of the front yard lot coverage and the side setbacks. We had 8 different designs that we considered to minimize variance issues while preserving the trees and minimizing the impact or the increase of impermeable surface area. We requested an assessment from the village forester that you've just seen to determine the impact on the trees. His report noted that every design except the one that we are requesting tonight involved cutting of 2 or 3 additional trees beyond the one that he thinks is going to die if we don't cut it down that's right in front of the house. He also said that the selected design is the least invasive and would have the least impact on tree preservation. The village engineer assessed that removing the pavement for the east curb cut to decrease the front yard lot coverage would result in the death of 2 large trees otherwise would not be affected. Several designs that we considered required demolition of about a quarter of the house, and they would have increased the impermeable lot coverage. Two designs would have had significant impact on our neighbors to the east, necessitating them cutting down a 100-year-old tree, a very big tree, removing their retaining wall, regrading their front yard, building a new driveway, and getting the village to move a sewer manhole that's located in their parkway. We have tried to be respectful of the village's review process and have used the guidance that we got from the ZBA to make adjustments to the plans that we originally submitted. Chairman Bradley of the ZBA indicated that he believed that the proposed plan achieved these objectives. Also, I would note that we believe, and I hope that you, after seeing the pictures, would believe that the existing non-conforming circular driveway means that the impact from a new circular driveway is not going to make the changes stand out from the street. The handicap on the property that was the factor behind this variance request is the east driveway curb cut, which we shared with our neighbors to the east, Annie and John Kern, who are here tonight. Approximately 2/3 of the apron and 2/3 of the curb cut are on the property of 1184 Tower Road, and 1/3 is on 1174 property. Per the village engineer, if we eliminate the driveway to decrease the amount of front yard lot coverage, which was one of our considerations, the curb cut for 1184 will be removed. The apron will be removed. And if it's eliminated, it does not leave a wide enough curb cut for the Kerns to use to get in and out of their driveway. And due to the in-ground utilities in the parkway on the east side of the curb cut, where the sewer manhole is, the Kerns can't expand their curb cut there. Therefore, they have to create a new curb cut and do all that work that I just described a moment ago. The existing driveway, as you saw in those pictures, is bounded by two great big oak trees. And even if the curb cut were removed and the apron were removed, the upheaval to those tree roots would probably result in the death of both of those trees. The east curb cut has a 9% slope, and when combined with the crown of Tower Road, which is 7% slope to the gutter, the angle causes vehicles to bottom out, resulting in numerous scrape marks on Tower Road, and I can't even tell you how many on the bottom of my car. Because of these issues, the village had already granted a permit for the existing driveway and the west curb cut. The new construction of a two-car garage at the front requires the relocation of the existing driveway forward, as you saw in the initial presentation, towards the front of the property, which impinges on the front yard lot coverage and results in this larger variance. We realized after our second ZBA presentation that we were not doing a very good job of communicating these issues, because it seemed clear to me, but I've lived there for a long time, and it wasn't obviously not clear to others. So to solve this, we hired Dan, our second architect, to review all of the design alternatives again and incorporate the input from the village engineer and the village forester. We, at the third hearing of the ZBA, presented the same request that we had previously done, but with the reports as I described earlier. And at this third hearing, Dan, our new architect, explained his findings in detail with photos, showing the trees that bracket the east curb cut, showing the 7 feet that would be left in the Kearns driveway. So if we move our driveway, you're never going to be able to leave home again. And at the conclusion, Chairman Bradley spoke at length, and he confirmed that he'd made an on-site visit, he understood the issues, and he fully supported it. So that is my story. I hope that you will all sleep well after your bedtime story, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay.
And Dan is also available
Awesome.
to talk architect talk.
Thank you, Ms. Hewitt. That was really well done.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Well, we'll open it up for questions for either
Whichever of us.
David or the applicant.
I have a question for David. On slide 9, you have in your presentation, you have that red rectangular box covering what the front lot coverage needs to be at the percent. Could you go to it? I'm just curious because these aren't the issues that Village Council sees as regular, obviously, as ZBA. How come it doesn't cover the whole, why isn't the percentage related to the whole front yard and only just that red box?
Yeah, the idea is that there needs to be so much yard in the front yard, and that needs to be closest to the street.
Okay.
And so that's why the measurement is a consistent 30 feet in this zoning district is the minimum front yard, absolute minimum, and it's within that area no more than 30%.
So even though they have extra grass space from this reconfiguration that's closer to their house, that's not considered part of this?
Correct.
Okay.
Am I allowed to add to that
Please, yeah.
explanation a little bit?
Sure.
Just to make it a little clearer, maybe? So with that red rectangle, you could put a house right up to that red rectangle, all the way across the red. And if you had a garage, you could have a two-car garage with a driveway straight to tower. What's taken away on this particular site is that you got the radius drive. So that's really maybe help clarify that.
Thanks.
Keep going.
Did you say your neighbors to the east, the house right next door to the east are here, or?
Right there.
They're right there. We're covering them up.
That's-
It's apart.
So if you don't mind, you're okay with the garage? You're the ones closest to the garage extension, right? That's,
Yes, we approve of what they have planned and certainly encourage your
That question?
granting the variances.
okay, well, thank you. And you're not under any coercion, you haven't been forced here against your will?
No bribery, nothing.
Nothing? It's Chicago, you gotta ask, right?
No, you don't.
Thank you for coming, that's really great that you came.
I got a couple, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess one of the questions that came up in the ZBA was, and I think there's been testimony that you're not using the eastern driveway for your purposes. Did you look at potentially just allowing, and I guess this is maybe a question for David, because I find it curious to say that if you no longer used the east driveway, that the curb cut would be lost on Tower Road, which I think is IDOT jurisdiction, isn't it?
But first I'll let the applicant address, it's not that they don't use the east curb cut.
That's correct. We do use the east curb cut. We use the east curb cut to enter, as you can angle up without hitting your car. And we use the west curb cut to exit because the slope of the property, it goes fairly substantially uphill, especially if you're shoveling snow manually. But no, we always use the east curb cut. Yeah. It was suggested to us that one way to decrease the front yard lot coverage was to get rid of that portion of the driveway, which we understood, but that would solve the problem, and it would screw the Kerns.
Well, I guess that's what I'm testing, because you could certainly give them an easement.
I'm sorry.
You could give them an easement, and the curb cut could remain. You could just decide to disconnect your
If the they actually drive on our driveway.
Right.
So if we take any portion, if we take our driveway out, which solves our problem, they'll be driving on grass.
It's shared driveway.
Right. No, I understand, but I'm
Okay.
just saying, because I visited the site, I live in the neighborhood, so I saw, I was just curious.
Does that answer your question?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's why you didn't consider eliminating any access to the garage from the eastern.
Yeah, we would have done it to eliminate, if it didn't have a very, very negative effect on the Kerns, we could have done it. We would have done it, but we're,
Though, Ann, am I correct, that's your property? I mean, you're saying that half of that driveway, half of that shared area is your property.
It's your two-thirds.
Two-thirds.
Well, no, but I think 2/3 of the shared, but I think your property goes sort of a couple feet. It was marked, as I recall, on my visit there. And so if they could give an easement, but
Right.
it's giving up their property. I mean, it's,
I understand now, and I wasn't processing when you said an easement, right?
I just was challenged, I mean, it's just correcting that it wouldn't automatically go away. They could find a way, but I understand that
Correct.
they don't have to. Yeah.
right.
All right, I have a question for David, even for anyone else. Previously on the board, we created the historic bonus program. What bonus was that? Was that 5% or some number?
It was 20%?
20%. So I guess I'm just keeping that in the back of my head as we look at this. It could have been a historic house. If we use that 20% and kind of apply some of those thoughts on this property, we're keeping an old house, getting updated, and initially giving a bonus in such a way that we get to approve the bonus. So that's good to know, thanks. And I like the circle drive, so getting rid of a drive on Tower Road, it's so nice to pull in and pull out, because I see some people trying to back out, or it's a process, so I do like that circle to keep that. And then the shared driveway, currently, it sounds like it's just been there for so long, and there is no real legal easement. Right, so is this a good time possibly to clean that up and make it an easement for future use of the people next door, so that it just becomes a consistent and legal document maybe? They don't own the property, you don't lose the property.
They probably have a prescriptive right at this point.
Most right, without getting into those details. Well, I'm not sure, that's just a recommendation maybe that should be looked at.
I mean, the property owners at any time can place an easement on their property.
Right.
So they could do that. They just, at this point, haven't indicated a desire to do that because of the relationship they have with the current.
Right.
But I hear.
So I'm just wondering if that's something we want to, if we have the right to even ask for that.
I think it's
Let them handle it.
for them to- yeah.
Okay, that's good. And I know we might lose a couple of trees, not, that's fine. Is there any requirement to replace a couple somewhere else on the property?
Yes, there would be a tree replacement in terms of the number of inches that are removed, given the size.
Okay. And that wouldn't take any action by us, that's just by permit?
That's handled by.
Okay, good.
That's by code.
Per code.
Good.
yeah.
All right, and then my last question is, as far as stormwater goes, what requirements might they have to do because of storm? I heard some word that it's the same impervious land, but they are adding impervious, I think.
Yeah, so the village's requirement for an existing property and home is that you can add up to 25% amount of impervious surface to your property without having to provide stormwater detention. This, based upon the information we have to date, will not do that. So therefore, they won't have to provide detention, but they'll have to meet all of our other stormwater drainage requirements in terms of making sure they're not negatively impacting the neighbors by how they're grading the property.
That's all I have, thanks.
David, on the minimum front yard setback, it's not a big variance, and you mentioned that, but we dealt with this because that's based on the average setback of the homes on the block or whatever it is, and I think we dealt with that.
Yeah.
With the home near you down
Yep.
from Village Green.
Yeah, we did.
I'm trying to remember what we concluded on that.
We moved it a lot closer, because sort of a similar set of circumstances where you're trying to squeeze a footprint into an old established space, so it did go quite a bit closer to the front yard than.
And we saw that sort of not as a kind of a quirk in the zoning ordinance, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's an important sort of flag for us. So you're always thinking about like, oh my God, the people sitting next door all of a sudden be looking at something they don't want to see. For me, that's how I've always viewed that. Is it going to create sort of a weird sight line? And that's why I was happy that you have your neighbors that are going to be a part of that sight line here. But yeah.
It's the same kind of circumstance.
Yep. Very similar.
Granted that variance?
We granted it, And they're building.
Okay, thank you.
Couple things. I visited the site today and Kim was there as well. And couple things struck me. One is that I'm not worried about trees in that property.
Yeah.
They got enough trees in the property. The tree they're looking at taking out is so close to their foundation that it's on top of their house, which I would want to take out anyway, because if that thing goes, you're going to lose half your house. So I think they were being very thoughtful about just trying to find one tree that then it probably should be taken out. The compromise, I know it wasn't a slam dunk at the zoning board. The compromise, I assume the only other compromise you'd have to make would be reducing the size from a 2 to a 1 car garage, which I know you don't want to do. I assume, would that bring them into proper, within the requirement they need to be?
You're talking about the front yard lot
Correct.
coverage? No, the garage is not within that area. So even reducing the size of the garage
matter.
will not
Okay, that's
impact the
fine.
front yard lot
That's what I
coverage.
wanted to know. I went and looked at the sight line in the front and saw that this house was a little bit more recessed than other homes in the block, so it wasn't going to be so egregious that just from a general look-see, it was kind of in the middle. It'll probably be a little bit further than others, but it wasn't sticking out like a sore thumb either. But I'm not going to get into design, but I assume what I'm looking at, are you, on the new addition, are you making the brick match the house on the current house? You're finding? Correct. So that'll match. I'm with you there. That's, yeah. Okay. I looked at the design, just wanted to make sure that it wasn't, aluminum or something. But no, I think that, and we're trying to figure out impervious surfaces. There's no type of brick or anything that will help. Impervious is anything that isn't grass.
Yeah, the permeable, use of permeable paver has to do with the overall impermeable lot coverage. It's not going to help on the front yard lot coverage. That standard is really looking more for landscaping and vegetation in that area versus paved surface. Okay. So permeable, using permeable surface in the front yard, in this instance, does not help in terms of trying to reduce the amount of front yard lot coverage.
More questions? All right, well then, thank you. We'll go ahead and open it up to public comment. Would anybody like to speak on this matter? Come on up.
I'm Annie Kern, and I live next door, and Ann is just a fabulous neighbor. Everybody should be so lucky to have a neighbor like that. We just want to be able to get out of our driveway. Our house is 100 years old. Well, it's older than 100 years old, and we still have the original garage, which is a playhouse in the backyard. And we like the integrity of the neighborhood. We get along with our neighbors. And I wanted to thank all of you for the time that you give. I mean, my husband and I have been on many, many committees in our lives, and we understand the time you give, and I thank all of you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
And Janet, my husband isn't talking tonight, I guess. I don't know.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak on this matter? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment and bring it back up here for final deliberation. Who wants to lead off? Bob?
And I sort of approach this, and I also visited the home, and you sort of have to be on the property to really appreciate what they're trying to accomplish here. And it took me back to some of the torturous meetings I've had on Landmark Preservation Commission where homes have come along for demolition, and they may not be most architecturally significant or historically significant, whatever, but they fit into the neighborhood, fit in the streetscape, and the commissioners are like, couldn't you have marketed the home and found someone to renovate the home? Couldn't you have done something with this home that could have preserved it? They say to the developer who's building lot line to lot line. Well, I mean, it struck me that we have the buyer right here. She's lived in the house for 20-some-odd years. She loves the home. John loves the home. You can see what a developer, and I think probably if it was sold, it probably would be torn down. I hate to say that, but, you know, we've seen it over and over. And we see that, you know, the impermeable lot coverage, where they're going to be 4,500 feet, developer is about 6,000 feet of impermeable lot coverage. The max roof lot coverage, basically the size of the roof, builder is going to put 3,200 up. They have 2,700. So, you know, these are the kind of circumstances. And Andy, you've talked about the zoning code, and you know, you got to look at it in terms of the context of the home. And I've learned from you on that, and I think you're right. This is one where I think we really have to think about it in terms of the context of the property. And what they're trying to accomplish is exactly what we want other homeowners to think about when they think about their property. And so, you know, we can quibble about 100 feet here, a couple hundred feet there, whatever. This is bringing a home to the standards that younger families are going to want down the road. I agree with that. 2-car garage, ceilings that you don't bang your head if you're 6 feet tall, some room for some kids to play, and you're preserving the trees. And, you know, I walked away thinking, this is the prototype of what we're looking for. So I'm 100% in on this one, in spite of the fact that there are some variances. And I want to thank Ann and John for the grueling process that they've gone through. Because if anyone read those minutes, ZBA minutes, I mean,
Novel.
you could have, you know, packed up and said bye-bye after a couple of those meetings. So thanks for going through the process, respecting it, respecting the time with staff. But I think this is, you know, this makes a lot of sense, in my judgment at least.
I couldn't say it any better, so ditto. I agree 100%.
Ditto as well, and to bring in the neighbors as well in terms of the hardship of why a variance would be given for the front lawn coverage. It would be next to impossible for them to get in and out without scratching their car up, no matter what kind of car they have. Even if an easement was given and possibly devaluing the property they have, that could be a solution. But in this case, why make things harder when it seems like it makes sense to move forward with giving some small variances? Also, from the perspective of this isn't stuff we see all the time, we rely on the ZBA to give us recommendations. They are the advisory board. They've looked at this 3 times. They had a vote of 4-2, and I'm not one to say I'm smarter in this world than they are. So I'm also 100% in.
Great. Rob?
Yeah, I talked to some of the ZB board here, and I always look at precedent, and I get concerned about setting precedent that we can't get out of. I think they have said that this is such a unique set of circumstances that there really isn't precedent here. This is a one-off where you really have to take a look at it, as Bob eloquently said. So, and secondly, if I lived on Tower Road, there's no way on God's earth I would back out of that driveway. So, so I will. I think that makes a lot of sense too. I'm okay with it.
Down here?
I think you know how I feel. I'm good with it. Thanks. Totally.
My questions were asked.
Great, okay. And I agree. I mean, resident has lived there for 20 years. They've, you know, Ann has invested a lot into this property over the years. She's preserving something. This is the common sense preservation that we should be looking at. Rob, I want to give you assurance that, you know, I used to worry about precedents too, but your village attorney will tell you that every case stands on its own, and it doesn't create a legal expectation that somebody else can prevail. So I'm comfortable with that, especially in a case like this where we're doing something and keeping a resident in town. We're not rewarding a profiteer developer. We're working with a long-standing resident and making sure they can stay here and continue to enjoy their life. So that's good stuff. All right.
Chris, to ask a question. I know this is, and I don't understand all the logistics of introduction and adoption. I guess we can't think about adopting this, and Rob, maybe you can explain how this
Sure.
would work, or Chris, you could explain it since I asked you.
You know better.
So when land use cases come before the council that are unanimous, we notice the agenda item as introduction and potentially adoption. If it comes with a split vote, we notice it only as introduction because we can't predict how the council might roll with this and because there might be some other concerns that need to be heard through only introducing it. So I think your next question would be, what, if it's introduced tonight, if it's unanimous, based upon what I'm hearing, it would go on the consent agenda on the next meeting, the 21st.
Okay. So in future, is it possible to always
Yes?
advertise it as adoption so that we don't have to drag them out another meeting? You know, if they've already gone through and if possibly, if we could do that in the future.
I think that's council prerogative. We've been based, that was the direction
Yeah,
we had before.
agreed,
But if you want to
agreed.
change that, we could certainly do it. I want
Yeah.
Peter to weigh in just to make sure I'm not getting out over my skis.
When you say always, you mean if there's a positive recommendation, no matter what the vote of the lower body?
I would think that'd be good, if that's the worst case
That's how I
scenario.
was if it's a positive vote.
Sure,
Or a
sure.
recommendation vote.
I can think of a few times where being that presumptuous could create a lot of problems.
Well, it would
Right,
still be for
and-
introduction.
Yeah, it doesn't mean we have to.
You could always
But,
take it off the.
and I know this isn't creating any unrealistic expectation, but still,
Right, and there's no obligation to waive introduction.
Right, we can always
It would just
not
have
waive
the
it.
possibility.
well, I guess as long as there's an understanding amongst all you that this is the way we're doing it, because, you know, to me, when I say introduction and adoption, or whatever it is, you know, it's sending a message that we should be thinking that way. I don't want to be presumptuous to know that village council is going to look at a 4-2 vote and, you know, you might come out 3-3 on it, and I'm going to be stuck voting to break.
But then
the
we
tie.
could decide as a council to
So-
not adopt it the same night then, so.
Duly noted, and since everybody understands what we're doing at this point, I think I can work with it.
Good.
So we'll
Thanks.
see what happens there. Well, these poor people have been sitting here, and they want to get home and watch the football game tonight, so we'll go ahead and I'll ask to see if I can get a motion to introduce ordinance number M15, 2021.
So moved?
Second.
No.
Roll call vote.
Trustee Dearborn?
Yes?
Trustee Kripe?
Yes.
Trustee Mancini?
Yes.
Trustee Apatoff?
Yes.
Trustee Dahlman?
Yes.
Trustee Swerk?
Yes.
That motion carries. You don't have to come back next time. It'll be on the consent agenda, and it'll automatically go through, so the torture is over, and in a couple of weeks,
Never for sure.
in a couple of weeks, you'll be completely legal.
Now we can deal with the contract.
Yeah, good luck with that.
I can't protect you from that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good luck.
And thanks for coming in.
Thank you, good luck.
And Kearns, thanks for coming out too, really.
Yeah.
Appreciate the input.
I could no more, he's a lawyer, I couldn't.
Thanks, folks. All right, good job, moving right along. Old business. Item 10, 880 Willow Garage variation. This is for policy direction.
Is your mic on?
Yeah.
Okay.
This,
I know, just checking.
So happy.
everybody sounds like their mic isn't on, so. This continuance for council review is based on an appeal of the ZBA's denial on the subject property, considering a request for approval of variation. The applicant has returned, and should council grant the approval of the requested variation, the applicant will be required to submit and receive approval of a building permit application for the proposed improvements. And David's back to review this item again.
Yes, so last time you reviewed this was April 8th, so I'm going to review a little of what was discussed before, and then the changes the applicant has made to their application. Again, there are still two variations that are required: roof lot coverage and impermeable lot coverage. The property is on Willow Road, just west of the intersection of Willow and Birch. The property is zoned R2 and is a legal non-conforming lot in terms of lot area, lot width, and lot depth. These images are of the existing home. As a reminder, in October 2019, the Village Council approved a series of variations for the property to allow the construction of the home. It included gross floor area variation, front yard setback, and a minimum side yard setback. At that time, the property owner had not proposed a garage, and it should be noted at that time an impermeable lot coverage variation was not required. The applicant is proposing a detached one-stall garage of approximately 250 square feet. It would be located in the rear quarter of the lot. Per the zoning code, given that it's located in the rear quarter of the lot, the garage would not be counted towards gross floor area. However, the garage does add roof lot coverage and impermeable lot coverage. Given the maximum amount allowed, what is existing on the site and what is proposed, in April, the applicant was requesting a maximum roof lot coverage variation as well as a maximum impermeable lot coverage, and the amounts of those requests are in the staff report and listed here. The applicant is now proposing to install a designed permeable paver surface to replace the existing driveway and patio. The village engineering staff has reviewed the design of this system, and it meets village standards to be counted as a permeable paver surface to qualify for a 25% allowance in calculating impermeable lot coverage. So in other words, only 75% of the proposed driveway and patio surface is counted towards the impermeable lot coverage. So the proposed driveway, which measures approximately 1,500 square feet, I should say driveway and patio, it measures approximately 1,500 square feet. It will only 1,100 of it approximately will be counted towards impermeable lot coverage calculations. The current proposal proposes to provide stormwater detention for all of the additional impermeable lot coverage that has been added since 2019. So not only is the site providing permeable pavers, but also stormwater detention. So the garage still constitutes needing a roof lot variation of approximately 250, a variation of 240 square feet. The maximum impermeable lot coverage variation has been reduced to 313 square feet, or approximately 12.66% increase. As a reminder, the property owner added additional impermeable lot coverage above what was approved as part of the original permit. The site plan and images above show that additional impermeable surface that was added along the edges of the driveway and along the front walk area. Based upon the submittal civil engineering plans, the site currently exceeds the maximum allowed impermeable lot coverage by 300 square feet. The current variation request that's before you, if approved, includes this additional impermeable lot coverage area. If the council would not approve the requested variations, the site would be in violation of the zoning code. So either the applicant would need to remove that 300 square feet of impermeable lot coverage, or the council could grant a variation for just that existing impermeable lot coverage. So at the ZBA, there was no written or oral testimony presented to the ZBA. The ZBA did recommend denial by a vote of 5-0. They felt the variations should have been requested with the original house application for variations, because if they would have been combined, they believe there would have been, the house may have been requested to be made smaller to accommodate the additional roof lot coverage required by the garage. Just as a reminder, given that the ZBA has recommended denial, for the council to approve the variation, it will require 4 trustees to approve the variation.
Hallelujah.
And either after the applicant presents or now, I'd be happy to answer questions.
Okay. Does the applicant have anything more to add to this? I don't want this story thing that we had the last time around, but we've continued this, what, 2 or 3 times? To accommodate the attorney, I believe. So you got something to say, let's make it brief so we can get up here and talk about it.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and thank you for giving us the continuance last time due to the Zoom hearing being eliminated. We have the engineer here today. My clients, just briefly, have worked very hard to try to right a wrong that they created and get a 1-car garage. And they're going to, expend some money to remove all the pavers they put in and put in this impervious. With that, I will let you ask any questions of either the owners or Sabine, the architect, the engineer, and we do have 2 neighbors here too, immediate neighbors that are in favor of it.
Great.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll go ahead and open it up with just questions for either David or the applicant. Anybody have any questions?
I have no questions of them. Were there any, we can get to the point where there are any
I need public
emails?
comment first.
Okay, good. I'm good.
So the only change from last time is just the permeable pavers? Got it. Okay.
I guess I do have one. And where is the detention? Is that below ground or?
It's below ground.
All right.
Okay.
And some swells, I should say.
All right, any other questions? Good. We'll go ahead and open it up for public comment. Would anybody in the audience like to speak on this matter who is not the applicant? Neighbors, friends?
I'm Julie Swislow, and this is
And I'm Mark. We're next door neighbors. Go ahead.
Our backyard actually is 6 feet away from them, and we are so much in favor of having them build a garage. It would just make the area much less congested. They've only had 1 or 2 cars in the driveway, but they haven't really, it would really be nice for them to be able to put their yard equipment and whatever away. Our dining room looks right into their yard. And they've been great neighbors. They don't cause any trouble. We don't want to lose them as neighbors. We really do like them a lot, and just feel that this would cause less congestion on these 3 little lots that sit right next to each other. Yeah.
And I think every house deserves to have a garage. They may have made a mistake in 2019 by not asking for one then, but they need one.
They do, and she goes to work every morning. He goes to work every morning, and for her to have to clean off the car every morning from ice and snow, I just feel that putting the car in the garage would just help her a lot.
Great. Well, thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak on this issue? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back up here. Open it up for deliberation. Anybody want to lead off?
Yeah, I'll start with a quick question, maybe more of a question to David again, sorry. The neighbors that just spoke, I didn't get their address. I believe it's the house to the west. Is that correct?
Awesome. It's kind of behind
East.
to the south.
Okay, sorry. Okay. So you're behind them.
Actually, our house faces Burton Street, and their house faces Willow.
Right.
So our backyard, which is 6 feet, is
There it is.
facing their backyard.
David, you had it on that last slide.
Yeah, it's right.
Right, okay, right. All right, got it. Okay, good. All right. So you're not the house that shares the driveway?
No, we're not.
Okay, just want to make sure of that. Okay.
And we did hear from them the last time, I recall.
Right, okay, good. And I know there was some comment made, they need a place to put their yard equipment. Well, if, it's either gonna be a shed or a garage. So,
I think
David, if they needed a shed for like lawnmowers or something, would there be a spot possibly they could put a shed up? As a utility structure or something?
Non-permanent.
Yes, they could put up a shed. It counts towards impermeable lot coverage as well as roof lot coverage,
Okay,
whatever that structure is.
okay, good. All right.
It would have to be a 2x5
Yeah,
shed.
They only have like
I'm-
10 square feet for roof lot coverage.
Right.
It's more like a
Okay.
closet.
Yeah, so I think last meetings I brought up my same comments probably. This type of lot with the double driveways, it's many times throughout Winnetka that exists. So I know Rob always talks about precedents. This is one of those instances, I think it is a precedent to be issuing just these kind of variances for this type of project. I know if they really needed a garage, could you get a 0 lot line setback and put it right up by the front of the house, drive in off Willow Road, eliminate the long drive, and get a 0 lot line setback, and maybe those neighbors may not like that, but there might be other options, again.
That leaves the roof problem, though. I think the roof issue is the one that you can't solve for.
Right, well,
Right.
the roof's issue, but then if you put the driveway like up at the front yard, the whole driveway going back, there'd be no more impermeable. So,
Right, the impermeable is one issue, but we still have the roof.
right. So I'm just throwing out my thoughts. So anyway, that's really all I had. That's it, thanks.
This is difficult. I mean, I visited the property, I saw the additional square footage the house received, and it's lovely, by the way, you did a great job on it, but it becomes a choice, and that is a tough one. I'm not sure quite how we ignore a 5-0 ruling by the zoning board. But it is, I feel for them, I understand why they want it, but I think the zoning board looked at all these things.
Right, and I guess when you go back to the original house construction, going through building permit, they did a GFA, the whole worksheet to get your permit process done to qualify for the zoning, so they knew what they were filling out as far as maximum imperial, maximum roof area. So it wasn't like it's a surprise, because they had the forms, that also in that form, I know has listed garage if there is one.
Let's talk about it.
Right, so, yeah, definitely, it's not a surprise.
I'm not sure I have anything new to say from the last time, but I'll say again, I would support it. I think you've got a heavy lift, though, getting 4 votes. And I understand why it's a heavy lift. I think we saw in the prior example, with the case just before us, the benefits of asking for permission first. Definitely a better path, and I get mistakes happen. And candidly, I was on the village council when we approved the plan for the house originally. I feel somewhat responsible because I didn't spot or ask the question, and I feel like I should have. Where's the garage? I think every house in Winnetka should have a garage. I think not having a garage is as much an inconvenience and likely to create a problem for a property, which we don't want in the long term, as it is a problem for the neighbors. And we heard that, and I was aware of that the last time, so I'm not saying anything new. I think good plan to switch to impermeable. I think that's a good way to mitigate that issue. You still have the roof coverage issue, and we are where we are. And I don't ascribe any bad motives. It just not a great way to get here. I would say yes, with the caveat to everybody, please please avoid this path in the future if you could, and I'm sure you would too if you could have that time machine. But, you know, the clutter in the backyard's an issue. We heard from the neighbors immediately to decide it's a safety issue. And I think I mentioned my potential conflict that my daughter plays in that house, so I'm actually aware of that dynamic. But I understand the hesitation. I also understand why the ZBA came so strongly against it.
Other thoughts?
I'll sort of liken my same comments before for the previous thing we just discussed, is that I'm not an expert in these issues, and so I heavily rely on the ZBA's recommendation to us as a council of where we should go after they've reviewed it. So I agree with everything Andy just said. I would also want a garage. I think you did a beautiful job with your home. It's unfortunate that it panned out the way it did, but I would have a hard time looking at the ZBA and saying I went against your recommendations after you spent so much time and effort looking through it, and I don't really have a justification to go against that.
Okay. What are you thinking, Bob?
I don't really have much to add. It is unfortunate. You know, the ZBA actually, my reading of this, actually talked about the garage during the process. And no garage was needed at the time. So you know, this is nothing personal or anything like that that's going on here, but this is a hard one to approve, I think.
May I talk?
No? We're deliberating.
Okay.
Haven't heard from, well, I can't figure out where you are on this, so maybe.
Oh, I'm totally on a.
Oh,
No,
yeah,
you.
you know, I struggle, right? Because we deal, you know, at the Plan Commission and at the ZBA, you don't want to create this, I mean, you know, it was consciously discussed. If anything, I don't want to continue to penalize the neighbors, right? Who have, you know, stuff they have to look at. And it is penalizing them. It's almost to the point where I think we should just have a requirement that nobody is allowed to submit an application without a garage, right? And just as a checklist, so that people cannot benefit from increasing their FAR going through the planning process and then come back a year later and say, oh, we forgot.
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Or we didn't think we needed it, or our architect I mean, it's really, really hard, and I'm sure you can appreciate how that makes it hard for our ZBA and our plan commissions, and, you know, because you're putting people in a really tough spot. Your neighbors, potentially that share a driveway could have done the same thing, but they didn't. I'm really struggling. It's hard.
Well, we're going to have to vote in a couple minutes, so.
I know. I think you know, I'm still trying to figure it out, but I think the one thing for sure, we should never allow somebody to come through without a garage.
Yeah.
Your point.
Yeah, no,
It just penalizes the neighborhood.
Right.
Yeah, I missed that.
Yeah, and so how I feel is like Trustee Mancini said, we really, you know, we appoint boards and members, and they're 5-0. If I was on that board and someone got turned around, something major has to change between the board and here. It's just not right not to follow the board.
As a former ZBA member, I will say I never cared what the council did.
Yeah, but it's also that they know it's a tough decision,
Yeah.
and they probably don't feel like they can, you know.
Right.
Well, the other thing to remember too, I mean, that's a little off topic, but, you know, the advisory boards are just that, number one. And number two, they have boxes that they're required to think in. You know, whether it's the standards at the Plan Commission or the ordinances and all the square footage stuff at the zoning board. The beauty about being on council is we don't have those constraints, and we can bring common sense to the discussion as well.
That's right.
Can you guys give me a break here? Sorry. So, sorry.
And it's hard because if you stand on principle, you're harming at least two neighbors we've heard from,
Right.
and I'm sure there's a lot of other neighbors, right? And it is on Willow, so there's not really any on-street parking, right? There are really difficult situations.
That's a tough one.
Well, like I go, this is not a very unique house with the driveway situation.
Right.
So
I mean,
that's the precedent I would be afraid to set.
I think you have a good point with Willow. You know, it's something I actually, for some reason, we talked about towers so much being so busy. Willow's similar.
Right.
And how
Busier.
do you have, without a garage and more accessibility within there, how do you have people parking safely, getting in and out? Yeah, it's trickier too, so.
One question I had, and I don't know if you all know the answer to this, that if it was not, I mean, would some of the pervious surface area variance, impervious surface area variance be lessened if they had a deck?
We
So
did
you
talk about
required,
Penny raised that.
Right, but I think the reason, I could be wrong, but I think the reason why they have, there's a paved patio, that's a turnaround to park a car. I could be wrong, but that's probably a place to turn a car or park a car.
I think they mentioned they were willing to change, right? Was this last, or I think we're in deliberation, but I think there was talk of doing that, but it's the roof lot coverage, I think, that we're.
Right.
well, I know we can't make it perfect, but
Right,
it's just
right.
trying.
I mean, if that would made the difference for 4 people, it's probably worth talking about, but if we're still stuck on the roof issue, then.
Right. But again, going back to the whole Willow Road thing, like the circle drive on Tower, garage or no garage, you're still backing out on the Willow Drive. That turnaround might give them a point to do a 3-point turn or something. So the whole Willow Drive thing, Willow Road, shouldn't matter on the garage because you're still backing out.
You know, one thing I'll say, and it is something we should anticipate and think about, maybe none of us will still be on the village council at this point. A subsequent purchaser comes along, buys this house, they will be able to make the showing on the standards. They will. Because they'll be able to show that the house is not up to par. That's one of the standards. It's unique. It won't have anything to do with the purchaser, and it will meet all the standards. So that's just something to think about. This likely will come up again. They'll see this record. And candidly, I think it would likely be approved. And so the only thing we accomplish by saying no right now is a little bit of a slap on the hand. I don't mean that to sound like dismissive or whatever. I get why there's a lot of consternation. And this is not a way to make policy, right? But like Chris said, we're not constrained by those 8 boxes. Our job purely is to do what's in the best interest of the town. That's it.
Right.
We make the damn code, right? So, you know, we can, I just think that's worth bearing in mind. Again, I totally get why everybody is where they are, but I sometimes think, looking at the long view, it's like, you know, do we really want to do this again? You know, and what the worst scenario is, what if the house sits on the market and no one wants to buy it? I mean, it's hard to imagine right now, because apparently everything's being purchased.
It's brand new.
Right, and it's
Yeah.
brand new, but.
And they were able to improve the house and get a bigger inside too.
But, you know, the likelihood that a subsequent purchaser is going to come along and say, I want a variance, is great, and I can't see how anyone would deny it.
Well,
It's a very small variation on the roof. It really is. It's tiny.
One of the questions I had was when you talked about this before, if they had come in at the time that when they came in with the original development approval, how they still would have needed a variance, right? I mean,
They would
would have restricted their FAR, but they still would have had the rooftop, right? So that would.
It's hard to say how that, like, clearly I would have said yes. I did vote to approve it last time. I'm voting to approve it, notwithstanding it, but I can't speak for other, I don't remember if I was the only one at the time. That's.
Yeah, I don't think.
I remember it.
Yeah, you remember.
But I'm not sure I was here.
Yeah.
yeah, one thing I would be open to is talking about some kind of, I'm not sure how you work out the variance for the existing issue that they'd already exceeded impermeable. You know,
The 300 feet.
whatever it is for the extra driveway they put in without a permit.
Like if they could fix that and give their.
No, I'm saying, I'm still not in favor of the garage.
Well, they got to do that no matter what. There's nothing to work out. I mean,
Well,
if you don't
with
approve.
the impermeable, that's something we can just say approve and let it go away, maybe.
Oh.
That's not a great precedence either, but to take out 12 inches on each side doesn't make sense either. So I'm open to that, but not the garage.
I still can't figure out where we're at here, so.
So I think procedurally, to get a vote, even if it's a
I got the
loss.
procedure down. It was just a
Yeah.
matter of, I was trying to see if there was gonna, we were
There's a
gonna form any sort of consensus here.
Yeah.
No, I think Andy brings up a good point. Are we kicking the can down the road to a future?
Well, let that happen in the future. It could be 1 year, it could be 10 years, it could be 30 years.
But meantime.
The house may be a rental
neighbors
forever.
In the meantime,
Right.
Are
to what end?
They can put a fence up and not look at the stuff. These people could put a fence up and enclose their stuff.
yeah, but the
Yeah, really tall
shared
fence.
driveway people can't.
There's hundreds of shared driveways in Winnetka.
No, that
But you
just-
know, John, that's a defense that could be used for bad design everywhere.
Well-
You know, if you don't like the bad design because we don't have
No,
design
because
to
you
do,
just start studying
then
precedents
just
on these shared.
tough
drives.
luck, neighbor,
And
put a
it's not a
fence up
shared-
if you don't
it's
like
not a
looking
shared
at it. I
drive.
don't think that's a suitable solution
It's not a
under
sh-
any conditions.
It's not a shared drive. They're two.
We can only,
driveways.
make a decision on the case in front of us.
Totally agree.
That's all we can ever do.
Okay.
And any case that comes in the future, if someone tried to do this again, that's its own case, so.
Right.
The other thing that sort of bothers me a little bit is, I'm not sure if this is just a really nice shed or an actual garage for a car.
Right.
I mean, we've heard
small.
Yeah,
from the neighbors, they've got stuff in the backyard, they put a lawnmower in there and blah, blah, blah. I mean, this is a small garage. You still might have the cars out in the driveway
Or-
collecting
or you're gonna have
snow.
this-
It
or you're
sounds
gonna-
like it's a big shed. I mean, I don't.
Or the yard stuff ends up in the yard and the garage, cars in the garage.
I mean, I think that, you know, when this went in front of the ZBA, we all know it, it would have been a smaller home with a garage.
Yep.
Yep.
I mean, and that's what other people in town do. And so, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right,
Yeah,
well,
I mean, I do feel bad about it, but.
Yeah.
we can move ahead on a motion, and at that point, we would allow for further discussion if necessary, and then we would move to a vote. So,
Chris, do you vote on this, or what's your? No.
The zoning code says that when the ZBA recommends denial, in order to approve it, it requires 4 trustees. Village president's vote does not vote.
I see, okay.
so,
I'll make a motion.
here, may I have a motion to request staff to prepare the necessary ordinance approving the requested zoning variations at 880 Willow Road? I
So
need a
moved.
motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
No.
Now, we have a motion and a second. It's on the table. Just so everybody's clear, this motion, if passed, if I got 4 affirmative votes on this motion, you would be granting the exceptions and they'd be moving ahead.
So who made the motion?
I did.
Are you intending to vote in favor?
No?
Okay, so the maker of the motion should not vote against it. A seconder can vote against it.
How about we switch? I'll make the motion. John, you want to second?
Sure, I never knew that, but.
Keep me out of trouble here, will you?
Okay.
Robert rules.
All right.
They just switch it.
Yeah, they can switch.
We can switch it, sure.
Duly noted.
Okay,
Now discussion.
now we can have more discussion. Is there any change in thinking? And actually, if you'd like to come up now and say a word or two, we'd be happy to hear from you now.
I know we've beaten this issue into the ground. My clients, as we discussed, are both foreigners. They made a bad call when they built this house. They originally tried to save the original structure, as you know from your notes. So it wasn't new construction when they started out. But Julian, tried doing a bunch of the work himself to save money, and he went too far with demolition, and the village at one point deemed it new construction, but that was never their intention. I was just at the house before the meeting tonight, was inside, and they did a beautiful job with the house. I know a lot of you, we don't want to set precedent. We can punish them, but you're punishing the village, you're punishing the neighbors. They blew it clearly. They shouldn't have got the little extra square footage over a garage. Donia, the wife, was in, the Middle East when Julian went forward with whoever, whatever architect they're using, but obviously the architect wasn't a North Shore architect, because no North Shore architect would have allowed him to have built this house without a garage. We can punish them. It's not going to do any good. It's going to punish all the neighbors. And you keep talking about precedent. I think this is unique because it wasn't new construction. They started out as a rehab. And the village building department, deemed it because he went overboard with his demolition, and it kind of crossed that line and became new construction. But we have neighbors. I hear the neighbor, when I swing back to the two neighbors, are crushed saying, you're going to devalue my property. All the neighbors in the immediate area are for this. They made a mistake. We're at your mercy, and we're asking you to find it in your heart to let them build a garage. With that, we have the engineer. They've spent a lot of money trying to fix this impervious situation. And then impervious, as you know, the rule changed in 2019. So during the construction, they lost 250 square feet of impervious, which now they are trying to, correct at great expense. Doing the impervious correction over the roof lot variance it's clearly a win-win for the flood water and the retention for all this work that they have proposed to do. So you're helping the neighbors, you're helping the flood water, and you're not punishing my clients. That's one thing you're not doing by granting the variance. But as far as the village is concerned, I think it's a win-win. If you have any questions for my clients,
We don't have any more questions. We have a motion on the table. I just gave you the
Well, I appreciate
courtesy
giving me,
of
thank you
speaking.
very much for giving me the time.
Sure.
Can I make a comment to his comments or no?
You can continue to deliberate if you wish.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so he said it was very odd that it was started out as a renovation, deemed at some point as a new construction. That's not unusual in Winnetka. It just happened in Cherry and Willow.
Yes.
Right? So it's not an unusual thing. And if we let this go, I can see that happening more often. What's going to create Cherry and Willow coming back and saying, now I want a 4-car garage. I need it. You just gave a variance on Willow. I really do see stuff like that happening. And as far as
The only person that knows our zoning precedent like that is probably one of us sitting up here.
And then, creating all this, helping us with the stormwater in the village, it's not true. He's mitigating only the new impervious that they're creating. So it's not helping us one way or the other. So that's my only 2 comments to that. Thanks.
Right. Any other last thoughts? Okay, we have a motion, we have a second, and I'm going to ask Rob to take a roll call vote.
Trustee Kripe,
Yes.
trustee Swerk,
No.
trustee Dearborn,
No.
trustee Mancini,
Do you want a coin?
Yes.
trustee Apatow,
No.
trustee Dahlman.
Yes.
The variation is denied.
Yep, 3-3.
Okay, since you did not achieve the 4 votes, the variation has been denied. Okay.
President Rentz, so with that, unless no further action is taken, the existing, the impermeable lot coverage currently exceeds the maximum allowed. So if no other action is taken, then staff will seek enforcement to have them comply with the zoning ordinance.
And how many square feet was that?
Do your job.
300 square feet?
Is there anything
Well,
we
we can.
I'm sorry, it wasn't part of this application. And it's an enforcement issue that belongs at the staff level. So that's where it's going to stay.
Okay.
So, just like the dirt at some point, the staff just got to clean it up and deal with it. So that's where that'll go. You think I'd be, okay, here we go.
Yep.
Item 11, new business, there is none this evening. And item 12, closed session. May I have a motion to adjourn to closed session for the purpose of discussing the purchase or lease of real property pursuant to Section 2C5 of the Illinois Open Meetings Act, for the purpose of discussing pending litigation pursuant to 2C11 of the Open Meetings Act, and to adjourn the open meeting automatically and immediately upon the conclusion of the closed session without the conduct of any further business or comments. It sounds like an attorney wrote that.
Oh, I'm over, Chris.
Roll call vote.
Trustee Dearborn?
Yes.
Trustee Apatow?
Yes.
Trustee Kripe?
Yes.
Trustee Mancini?
Yes.
Trustee Swerk?
Yes.
Trustee Dahlman?
Yes.
Okay, we'll move into closed session.